All right, so yeah, we're back here. So sound checking.
Chicken.
That was something that wasn't in our mac and cheese because I don't eat chicken.
Are you a vegetarian?
Sometimes I eat fish, so I'm like a pescatarian.
That's so weird.
I can vibe with that.
What about you, Bridger?
What? Am I a vegetarian?
Pescatarian, vegetarian?
I am trying to be better for the environment.
I eat 15 hamburgers every day, just so that I can every time somebody's like, I'm contributing to the stop of global warming, I can cancel that out.
You're just offsetting Otis.
Yeah, I'm offsetting everything Otis is doing.
Nice.
There's like little posters where it's like, don't flush your toilet for a year, or don't eat one hamburger.
Don't flush your toilet for a year?
Yeah, there was something like, it was like, don't shower for a month, don't flush your toilet for 6 months, or don't eat one hamburger, and all three would have the same effect.
Welcome, everyone. Speaking of pescatarians, I'm joined by some suspicious individuals. I'm pescatarian. I don't know why I called pescatarian suspicious. That being said, this is Albumology, and joining me with today, your daily diet of Otis.
Hi.
Recommended daily allowance of Bridger.
Always here.
And things that you should make sure you supplement your intake with an extra helping of Veda.
Never been here.
All right, and of course I am Casady food group. I don't know. Anyways, welcome everyone to Albumology. Episode 2, we made it. We haven't been canceled yet, so that's pretty exciting. The network is letting us continue. And we have a new batch of albums for y'all today.
4 of them.
We do have 4 of them. This is correct.
Serious batch.
Yes, lots of
Sirius XM. Sirius XM batch of things.
We should be a radio show, actually, like with Howard Stern.
We really should. Yeah, we should. I'll contact Howard about that. We're on a first name basis, so
Yeah.
I'm starting to think we should get this pressed on vinyl, and then we can play it over the
Is there
intercom.
podcasts that are on vinyl? Is
yeah.
that a real thing?
My best friend assures me that really, if you can't hear a podcast without all the warm, scratchy fuzziness of a vinyl record, meeting a needle, then what are you even doing with your life? So.
Your best friend is a great person.
Yeah, if you're listening to this not on vinyl, then you're really missing the experience. So yeah, take those AirPods out, find yourself some good, like Sennheiser headphones, right? That's the company. Sennheiser, yeah.
You can just get normal
Sennheiser,
headphones.
I think.
Yeah.
It depends on the vinyl.
Yeah. Or you get some like Beats. Let's see if James Arthur has like Beats. Does he have his own brand of Beats yet?
He's got those like not copyright beats on YouTube, and they're like 24-hour compilations of just non-copyright beats. I feel like that's what he
I was talking about
uses
the
it.
headphones.
Okay, that's what I
the
heard. I was like, Beats by James.
Beats by James.
Okay, that makes sense. Still, his songs sound like...
It'll all sound good in the end, is what Brand is.
But it won't.
That's what his producers told him.
They were wrong.
Don't worry, James. We'll clean this up in post. It's going to sound awesome. Let's actually get into it, folks. So if you're joining us today, this week's assignments, we were to listen to Honest Men's Field of Vision. So we're going to get into the downbeat here with our new releases. And so our first one is going to be Honest Men with their new album Field of Vision. So Honest Men are a trio coming out of Texas. They seem to specialize a lot in like vocal harmony work, I noticed on this album, but this is their sophomore album. I do not know anything about this band, and so let's kind of get into Field of Vision and start delivering our thoughts. So Field of Vision, Honest Men, what do you think?
I'll go ahead and start out this one. So just for a little bit of background, I like one of this band's songs. The last song on their first album, called Take Time, is a pretty decent song. And so when I saw that this was on the calendar of new releases, I was like, oh, this might be a good one to check out. And it felt entirely average and kind of generic. And it sounds like music that was made by Seth, Brooks, and Zach.
To clarify, those are the members of the band. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is it Brick?
Brooke.
Brooke.
Okay.
Okay. Cool if it was Brick.
I came into this not expecting much. This was actually the album out of the 4 that I was like probably dreading the most. I enjoyed this a lot more than I thought it would. I thought that average sounding sound was like, it was okay, because the album was at least consistent with that average sounding sound. I don't think that there was a lot of bravery to it. There was nothing like going out of a comfort zone. It was just a lot of like, not like on the level of a James Arthur album, like same thing over and over again. Yeah. But it was like, yeah, everything was decent. There wasn't, I can't think of, it's not like the album where I'm not something so memorable that I'm just like, oh man, this specific song. I'm like, oh yeah, this specific album was pretty okay.
Yeah. A lot of this record to me felt very much like what a modern, there's only 3 people in this band as opposed to like 12 or whatever, but it felt like there's like Mumford & Sons qualities to it. I think it was mostly in the storytelling aspect of it. There's like some folk sensibilities in the way it tells a story. Like the song "Stuck" tells a really interesting story, and unlike a lot of our other artists will tackle the idea of like a downward spiral or falling, and they'll just kind of express that through emotions, or they'll tie it to another person, or they'll kind of have some impersonal feeling to it. It's like, I'm sad, and that's what's happening, right? I'm in a spiral. In this case, though, it tells a really interesting story, and there's a lot of like vivid imagery to it. And this song in particular, like, has some like visceral stuff in it, like "Dreamer Believer," "Wasting on the Other Side," "Cold Air," "Blank Stare," "Coughing Up a Little Blood," "High on a Feeling," "Got My Feet Up on the Ceiling While They're Pulling Me Down." Like, there's a kinetic movement to this song, and a lot of the other lyrics as well that I appreciate, and I kind of, as average as it sounds, I think it's average, but like it there's nothing bad with an average album. Like it feels like a record.
It's music you can listen to and like zone out to, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. It's like, yeah, it was not, there was nothing that particularly surprised me on the album, which I can kind of find refreshing when there's stuff that surprises me, but it was like, yeah, it was pretty average, but like a good average, you know, not like the type of average that you're like, oh, I've heard this a billion times. It was like, yeah, it was, and that song "Stuck" I remember really appreciating, and like, yeah, similarly, I thought that there was a pretty like consistent, yeah, just some consistent vibes throughout the entire album, which I liked.
Out of the 12 songs on the album, there's one that broke the mold, I'd say, which was the number 8, which
the Ropes.
Ropes, yeah, that's what it's called. And it's like more of a piano song, and it's not as like polished as the rest of them. It's more of like stripped down, just piano and vocals, and it kind of, yeah, like it broke the mold of the last few songs, which I kind of, it was a good timing for it, because it's like just after halfway through, and I was kind of ready for a new sound. I was just like, the chorus was like really heavy, and it was good, but like if the last chorus had a high harmony on the vocals, like it would have just like tied it all up, and it was like, I really wanted to hear that, so I was kind of disappointed that wasn't there, but I think that was a pretty solid song on the album.
I loved the diversity that came with Ropes, and I think it was the only moment, because there was no moment on this album where I like thought about like getting up and like dancing, or just like really thinking like, wow, this is like really awesome. Yeah. But Ropes was like, it wasn't any of that, but it was more of just that surprise where it was just, there was like not really anything else playing other than the piano. It catches you off guard, and I agree where it's like, it's at a moment in the album where you're kind of like, you're almost sick of this same exact sound. But the only reason like I really enjoyed that one is like the music itself. I was like, okay, this is all right, but just it felt so special in this sea of like very normal things. As for the rest of the sound, I really enjoyed the drums on the whole thing.
Yeah, is it Helpless that has like the lo-fi like kind of backbeat at the start of that kind of evens out? And I can't remember which song it is. It's either that or I don't think it's Dizzy. I think it's Helpless. Because I think Helpless has like this kind of lo-fi, like the production on the intro. That's really, really cool.
I remember Helpless was the first one. Even though it's the second song, it was the only one where I was like, these are some super solid drums. And this whole production on this was like really good.
Yeah.
I find their electric guitar style, their like clean electric guitar tone, I like the style that they use that with. And that's like kind of one of the elements that has carried over from the song that I like on their first album. It's like one of the things that I remember from that song, and I think it works really well for them.
Yeah. And it was really cool in this album. There were some points that I noticed. Some of the instruments would follow along with like the vocal melodic lines, which I thought was, I think that's like super cool and just like a fun way to add some intrigue to an album. So I really appreciated seeing that.
Yeah, like I really like the vocal harmonies. I think the three of them actually, like, they clearly, like, I mean, obviously they're musicians together, but like they have it kind of on lock with having voices that really complement each other and using vocal lines that do like drive the passion behind what they're saying, at least. So even when the instrumentation falls flat, like the composition of those vocals are really actually good, quite good actually. This is like the best record AJR has never made in that respect.
Oh boy, we love AJR. He's so awesome.
Yeah, we were.
AJR, he is really
Adger. Anyways, but no. In seriousness, though, I think this accomplishes the feeling. What I think like I guess I would like classify as probably as like an alt pop record, where it's not quite pop. It has like the sensibilities of like alternative rock, or at least some. We said like it has the qualities of like an Imagine Dragon or a modern day Coldplay or Imagine Dragons. Sorry,
I was gonna talk about like the Imagine Dragons, because I think halfway through this I was like, okay, I'm trying to compare this to something, and I think my mind went to Imagine Dragons. Yeah. There was a couple songs I wanted to point out, or just one really. It was "Love in the Falls," and I think it wasn't the best song in the album, but the voice was like just I don't know, everybody's here probably familiar with Bo Burnham. There was like not a lot of similarities in the lyrics, but just like the vocal tone and the way everything was delivered, and a lot of the stuff, the way it's delivered after that song is just that similar way. And it's a really interesting way to deliver music, because it'll sound like almost deadpan, but it's complemented by these beats. And I think that's what really like worked on the album, was just that the voices matched the production really well. And so that's what made it so average, or like just a little above average. It was just
it feels like they knew their strength was in that the vocal portion of the record, and it kind of the record revolves around that.
And that's what I talked about with the my mind just blanked.
James Arthur.
There we go. James Arthur. Yeah. Where they're not leaving a comfort zone. They know their strengths, and they stick with their strengths. And that's probably where a lot of that came from.
For sure.
Yeah. And there were some other like cool little parts that I noticed in there. Like in the first song, there was a really fun like pause where it just cut out for a second, and I really enjoyed that. I think in general, this album had production that really complemented just the vocals, and then also what the vocals were trying to get across. That kind of more melancholy production. And I don't know, some of the drums were definitely produced in a really nice way. There were some drum sounds that I was like, that's nice.
I think I was trying to compare the first album that we never got to talk about, the War on Drugs album. I had a comparison there where it was like, this is just like the Never Ending Story because of like the sounds and like I don't think there was any synth, but like just specifically the drums. And I kind of got the same similarities here, where it's just that very like magic up there, interesting, and the drums especially, that sort of sound just really made that the thing I could compare it to.
I guess my problem, so I look at this and like just like thinking about this, I'm trying to think of song titles and then matching them with the sound of the song, and with very few exceptions, like The Ropes being one of them, stuck. part of Dizzy, I suppose, the opening of Helpless, and then like What If We're Wrong, the 6.5 minutes, something like that, album closer that I think narratively like closes the theme really, really well. But aside from those, it's really hard for me to like discern what songs are what.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time with
that. And so like I'm trying to think like what is that song where like it sounds like a Bruce Springsteen song. It is just kind of like synthy and like it sounds like an older pop song. I can't remember which song it is on this album, but
yeah, I feel like it was a bit long, just like in general. It could have been shorter. It's not like horrible the way it is now, but especially the second to last song, Blurry Eyes. I think it was like 5.5 minutes or something. It didn't
need to be that long at all.
Especially, like, I understand ending an album on a long song, but when you have this 5.5 minute song and then follow it up with the last song that's like 6 or 6.5 minutes, that just like really stretches it.
It's draining. And like the thing is, like, again, the strength of from what I can tell from this album, the strength of Honest Men are again in those vocal deliveries, and then I think they actually do some good like narrative storytelling in their songs. And the problem is when you do storytelling in a song, you can have those longer songs, but like as you said, if it's like back to back these exhaustive stories, it starts to feel like draining on the listener, because you're keeping up with the narrative that's being told, and on top of that, like this feels like too much sometimes. So
that was one of my. It was a little long. I don't think there was many moments, especially in like the first 3/4 of the album, where I was like, I really want this song to end. It can end now. I think there was a couple moments where I looked at a song and I was like, okay, here's this great ending point, and then they threw a minute onto it, and I was like, well, what are you gonna do in that minute? Like add an acapella, and I'm like, this is so stupid.
Half of me was expecting some hidden track, like some throwback to like a 90s record of like, you wait 3 minutes on the last track and here's Hummus by Pearl Jam. I don't know.
Yeah, it's so like, it's weird. But that wasn't the reality. In reality, it was just like a very slow fade out. That was a little annoying.
Yeah.
And I think I could get very restless listening to this, especially on the back half of just, this is so long, and I wish it would end.
Well, okay, just something else that I want to bring up is that I'm looking at the credits on Spotify here, and it looks like they write all their own songs, they play all of the instruments in their own songs, and they produce all of their own songs, which is impressive.
It's the AJR formula.
Yeah, but like,
don't worry, we make our music.
Yeah.
Unlike James Arthur, they it is actually them.
We're burning all over James Arthur. We're on episode 2 already, burning all those bridges. Yeah. Cool. Well, in that case, let's kind of talk about our final thoughts on this before we move on to our next record. So going around the table, this album, like I said, there's a lot of things I do enjoy about it. I do think it's kind of this blends again. It's a little samey, but I can't discredit the songwriting. There's nothing blatantly offensive about it. There's nothing that I like. It doesn't pretend to be anything more than it actually is. For me, it's like a 6, maybe closer to a 5, but probably as a 6 out of 10. It's like slightly above average. I'm not going to go out of my way to hunt this down, but it has some interesting pockets here and there that I did quite enjoy. So.
Yeah, I mean, as for a lot of this, not coming into the album as like a fan of the artist, I come into it from a complete blind point of like, is this their best work? And for me, like, I enjoyed this. Playing to their strengths, like, that's obviously a safe play. Is it something like I can appreciate? Sure, but I would have preferred if there was like just a lot more diversity in this instead of just one song where it's like they tap into the piano. It was not painfully average, but it was getting there. It was pretty average. It almost got boring. It was pretty all right, but as Cassie said, like, you got to appreciate the production there, especially, and a lot of the vocals, they were well done. So when I look at this, like, 6 out of 10, honestly, I think like very barely reaching towards a 7 for me, just because I went into this not expecting much, and I came out of it with a lot more than I thought I was gonna get, and so I was able to enjoy it a bit more. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. So probably a high 6 or something.
I gave it a 5.5 out of 10. I just kind of felt like, I don't know, maybe it was just because I came in knowing and liking one of their songs, and just like this was kind of an album that sounded very similar to that one song. It doesn't seem like there has been a whole lot of growth from what I've heard since their last release, which I guess is fine. It seems to work for them, but yeah, just kind of like, I'm not gonna listen to this outside of this scenario, I don't think. And but it's fine.
Okay.
Similarly, I think it was like, it did some stuff quite well, and there's definitely a lot of appreciation to be given to the just to the fact that they did it all, those three people. But it also didn't really push my understanding of music in any new way. It didn't really bring any new ideas to the table. But then again, it also had some nice narrative structures and stuff. So I think, I wrote down a 6 out of 10 for this one, just because it was average, but it was a good average, you know?
We're a diverse group of people.
Yeah, no groupthink going on here.
You know what? We know what music is. We know what to expect.
I suspect different outcome with this next album. So moving on, that was
Casady.
That was Honest Men, Field of Vision. We're now moving on to our second new release of the week. On the downbeats, we have Crawler by Idols. This is the band's fourth record. Let me double check. It is the fourth album, yes. And they are Wikipedia classifies them as a British rock band. I think they skew, from just my limited experience, much closer towards punk. And yeah, it's their fourth album. Had a couple singles from it, but what did you all think of Crawler?
I like this album, honestly. And it's a very guilty pleasure to me. This album I can really split into two albums to myself. The first half and the second half. And the first half, I really liked the first half. I thought that MTT 420RR, however you say that, I really liked the random drums at the end that were really scattered. I really liked the ear switch that they did with the synth to make them, because they really want to be the Beatles. I like you when I heard that, I was expecting something from this album, something different than what I got. But even then, that was pretty cool. I thought that it was a really good opener. I thought that the build-up was really nice. I loved the goofiness that can come from a lot of the lyrics. He was Jelly Roll. I really like a narcissist on a cucking stool. I really like the Richard Pryor line, which is shimmy real hard like you're Richard Pryor. I enjoyed a lot of it. The back half, though, I was everything after Crawl, exclamation point. I thought that just, at that point, it was just getting a little iffy. Which is a little sad, because a lot of this album, there's a lot of short songs here. There's not a lot of, big songs. And so everything being, at most 3 minutes, you wouldn't expect it to last a long time. But for the back half, it was just not that good. I thought that the fact that there were two 30-second songs that were just two pretty half good interludes, other than Wiz, which was top tier, best 30 seconds of my life. It was all right.
I thought that the good parts on this album were really good, and then there were some parts that I could leave behind for sure. I thought that the first track was really interesting. Just the slow build up to then not really hit that climax was really interesting, because it's the synth grew and grew and grew, and then it had this kind of breakdown, and then the lyrics really came in, and he like got louder and louder, but the backing instruments didn't come up with that. And I thought that was a really interesting choice, but it really conveys that feeling of like anxiety and like the cold sweat kind of feeling. It did that really well. And then my other favorite part on this album was number 10 and 11 together. Kalechi, I don't know if I'm saying that right, and Progress. Kalechi is the first 30-second song.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like an ambient synth soundscape kind of thing. And then it leads into Progress, which is, I think, like the slowest song, like least energy on the album. And it really works well, like flowing into that song as an extended introduction. And even though the lyrics in the song Progress like repeat so many times, I think that the production on how like the overlapping vocal tracks and the evolving nature of the instrumentation, it works without having a bunch of different verses, and just like that one stanza that had it like they switched out a few words every time they said it. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, this album was enjoyable for me. I did not it's not a genre of music that I listen to very often at all. But I think there were some definite... I liked how there were some like different musical elements incorporated into this more like punk, like rock type record. With like, I thought the production added a lot of really interesting things to it. Just as far as like little noises in the background of the production that kind of kept me engaged with the album. Throughout on a lot of the tracks, there were little things like just ear candy that I really appreciated. And then, yeah, I completely agree with Bridger about tracks 10 and 11. I was like, at some point listening to like that particular punk vibe bass tone and like that whole production choice gets a little bit much, but when like that track 10 came on, I got really happy. That was a nice track, and there were just also a lot of like clever lyrics. I thought maybe not a lot, but there were definitely the presence of some clever lyrics.
When they showed up, they were really nice.
Yeah, exactly. There was one that I wrote down that I thought was kind of neat, especially in that first track. That first track was I like that one a lot. But the Swell of Heaven on a Dashboard, I just think that's just like an interesting way to describe something. I'm not sure what it's describing, but I don't know.
I strongly dislike this record.
We strongly dislike you now, Casady.
I appreciate that. I will die on this hill proudly.
Disagree about something.
Yeah, we're gonna actually disagree on this. Two things I really enjoy in music. I really like punk records, and I really like post-punk, and which I'd classify this as trying to be. It has these like avant-garde tendencies to it, with punk sensibility, right? Like the whole notion of the spirit of punk music to kind of this like either distill something and smash it apart and then rebuild it. Like clearly this is a punk band that knows how to do the thrashy punk stuff. You have a lot of those tracks on here. The Wheel being one of them, Crawl being another one, Meds being another one, Stockholm Syndrome being another one, The New Sensation being kind of a hybrid of that with post-punk, King Snake, elements of The End, Whiz being just 30 seconds of punk music. The problem I have with it is 4 of these tracks on here are a relatively successful reinvention and deconstruction of punk music. Those 4 songs are MTT 420RR, which might be the best album opener I've heard in a long time. It is so good. It is so layered. It is so foreboding and ominous and brings you into this atmosphere. and there's a dark tinge to the wheel that I appreciate, even though I think the lyrics are absolutely atrocious. And there's even like it's weird for me because it goes from this like really inventive, interesting song, but then even within that inventiveness, you hear like the opening line just sounds like "Angel" by Massive Attack, which is a electronic music group from the late 90s. And like you hear these elements sprinkled in here and there, and when that song evolves with the chaotic drums that were kind of brought up, it like soars higher than I think any track on this record. But then you go into the wheel, which falls into like pretty stereotypical punk sensibilities, and we keep using the word sensibilities because that's what this album has a conflict of, is sensibilities. When the Light Comes On is like, if you had told me, it sounds so shamelessly like a Joy Division and Pixies song mashed together, like late era Pixies, like Trompe Le Monde Pixies, that when I listen to it, it doesn't feel super genuine. This feels like they learned to cover a song, like they covered a Pixies B-side is what it kind of sounds like. I don't mean to be cruel about it, but like they don't do a really good job of what I think when you reinvent yourself as an artist, taking your influences and then adapting to your own style and centering it around who you are as an artist is like integral to music. And then that's how music adapts and moves forward. And this sounds like between MTT 420RR, the song Car Crash, I think is the first or second single off of this. Car Crash is a great song. I think it's really interesting and stylistically probably the most interesting track here. And then like Progress, you guys mentioned Kalechi and Progress. I'm less big on Kalechi, but Progress for certain. Those are all tracks that like do attempt to stray into something that's not just a punk or like a punk record. And they do it relatively successfully, but even then you see these tinges of, oh, cool, you listened to these three artists and made a song that sounds like those three artists. But it doesn't feel like they're doing anything themselves with it. They're not really, I don't feel like they're injecting themselves into it. The only exception on this album is Beachland Ballroom, which I think Beachland Ballroom is a phenomenal track. I love the waltz that it has, the kind of slow shuffle to it. I just love the story that it kind of tells and like the cry for help that it has. The fact that it like ends with damage just kind of be screamed at the top of his lungs over this like slow, plodding, just swing is really, really fascinating. And then everything else on this record is so predictable and goes against the idea of reinvention, and sure, it sounds interesting, but it's not to any end to the benefit of a record. There's like nothing worse for me on a record than when like you don't commit, like you hedge your bets, you don't commit to it. And for me, this album just does not in any way commit to one thing or the other. So you get like this this post-punk record that I don't think satisfies any post-punk fan, and you get but then it has punk songs on it that I don't think are good enough to be like, oh, this is a great punk song. It just, I don't know why it exists in its current form. I really don't. I sincerely think 4 of the tracks are great to varying degrees. 10 of them are from what sounds like another album. Like, I don't know how else to describe it other than production's great. I just wish the songwriting was good. Like, I don't think it's good.
I like a lot of experimental stuff, and I think that in reality this could fall into that category for quite a bit of it. And so I feel like I have a good understanding of when something's experimental and when something is just super annoying. There was some moments on this where I really enjoyed that experimentalness. I know MTT 420RR, it was just so good. It was a really good opener.
I want the entire album to be that. Like, I want it to do that.
I felt like the biggest problem with this is just that it started falling off after the first song. Because there was a lot of this that I really enjoyed, minus the second half. Like, me personally, when the lights come on, like, I'm not coming from this, like, I enjoyed that one. I thought it was good. I liked the guitar. I thought the vocals were pretty good. I think The New Sensation, that was one I was a little biased towards that one because I've been listening to the soundtracks of these old biking DVDs called Earth. And there's like 5 of them, and they have like some of the best soundtracks ever. And I highly recommend everybody listen to those. And it had that like really good vibe to it. And so I think that's why I enjoyed it so much. And then like there was some moments where it was really bass heavy on New Sensation, which I started to really enjoy. I looked up the album. I was interested in what story was being told, and a lot of it was about addiction and overcoming that and trauma. And I thought that if that's what the album was going for, it had the good, like, it had that. I thought there was a lot of moments where I felt traumatic through a lot of this album. Specifically Beachland Ballroom, because it was described as coming back from trauma, and I thought that it delivered that so well. And also Kenny Beats co-produced that one, and I thought that was really interesting to see him on this kind of music. But like as I was saying earlier, the second half didn't do that good of a job with that. There was like no specific song on the back half of this album where I was like, that's pretty cool. I thought that Kalechi to Progress I was a little iffy on, because I was just iffy on Progress in general because of that like different, it was like just different, much calmer than the rest of the album. When it kicked in, it worked all right. Kalechi was okay. I thought it was okay coming off of Meds. Meds, I didn't like that one that much. It was a like rock ballad poem, and it's kind of stank, kind of bad. Like the ending was pretty cool, but the rest of the song was just like this really boring. It felt very monotone. There was nothing I like wanted to talk about. Something like Crawl, being like kind of a little bit manic, as the kids would say. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was a good switch, and I thought it being, I think it was, it was pretty much directly, like a little after the middle of the album, coming off of Beachland Ballroom. That's when everything just kind of switched, and so you got like 2 whole different sets of music, but in reality, a lot of it, like, it wouldn't deliver as much as you wish it would.
Yeah. And going off of that idea of like not keeping it consistent, the last song called The End, the whole theme of that was like, despite everything, life is beautiful. And like having quote. This whole album, the last 13 songs being about like addiction and abuse and like falling on hard times, and like having all of those themes throughout the first 13 songs on the album, and then immediately just switching to being like, oh yeah, everything is beautiful, even though all of this bad stuff is happening, and it just didn't feel right.
I hated The End because it was literally just the Trotsky thing. And when you looked at the like description of the song, he was like, you know, I was looking into this whole Trotsky quote, and I was like, that's pretty cool. So what if I wrote a song about it? And so I wrote The End, and I made a terrible song.
Paraphrasing, of course.
Yeah. In spite of it all, life is beautiful. In spite of it all, life is beautiful. God damn.
This is the album I listened to the most this week, and every time I think about it, every time I listen to it, it degrades itself in my memory.
Just don't think about it.
I don't think about it. Hey, like if I just based my entire reaction on the first track, boy howdy. If I just skips a bunch of the tracks and I just narrowed it down to 4 of them and it said that was an EP, I'd be like, awesome! I can't wait for their next record. This album frustrated me to no end, more so than a lot of albums have.
One of the
recently.
most annoying things I've noticed about a lot of these albums is they're like, this is our experience during quarantine, and I'm like, that's so annoying if that's all you're gonna base your album off of. I worry about the Adele album because of that. But it's like just a lot of it, I'm like, if that's your only inspiration was I was locked in my house for a year, it's not good music. It's not like heartfelt. Obviously this one's like about addiction, so it's a bit different, but it still has that like quarantine project behind it. So
it is a substantially it's like somebody said the whole meme of like, oh, I want to hear you won't get what you want by Daughters, and it's like, oh, you won't get what you want by Daughters at home, and like this is that version.
Yeah, you're not gonna get what you want.
It's a half commit. If you're listening, check out that Daughters record. I know it's gotten critical praise, but like it is substantially like an incredible example of this type of reinvention. Working to create something quite literally so new and like fresh that it still is like the best rock record released in the better half of a decade. So
it's really interesting seeing this really heavy new age of experimental stuff. Unless you're Playboy Cardi's Whole Lotta Red, because despite everybody being like, this is the best album ever, I'm like, this is the most annoying stuff I've ever heard.
Yeah. I do want to move forward for next records for time's sake.
Should we give scores?
Yeah, we should give scores. So let's go around. We'll go counterclockwise. So Otis, if you want to start us off.
I mean,
I will not judge anyone. I will die on this hill. I will. I know what I'm giving it. So I know. Don't be scared. Like, share your opinions. Like, try to convince me. Like, sell it. Come on.
I think it was, for me, it was like a 7, maybe a 7.5, maybe an 8, because I don't have experience with punk, so like hearing those other songs to me wasn't just as much of a repetition.
Okay.
But I really did appreciate, thinking back on it, I did much more appreciate those kind of newer, like kind of, what was the word you were using? Like new punk? I don't know.
Post-punk.
Post-punk, yeah. Like I did appreciate those a lot, and just kind of the use of the synth, and just kind of like with the more classic punk elements. And then I think the production on this album was what really saved it for me. And from all of the things that were maybe not as good. Like there was one track where there was some like amazing dissonance in the, what was it? Whatever, it doesn't matter. There was a good like dissonant sax solo, and then I'm pretty sure there was a guitar solo, but the guitar was out of tune. And I thought that those were just like really interesting production choices that fit well to the themes of the album. And yeah, just not being super familiar with the genre, I would give it a 7.5 or like an 8. I don't know.
I gave this one a 6 out of 10. I thought that the songs that I liked were really good, but there were also some songs that just made me laugh when it was clear they weren't trying to make me laugh. I think that like Whiz is kind of like a, funny 30 seconds, like doesn't really have to make sense, but there were a few songs where it's like, it doesn't really make sense, and I just kind of laughed at it. But then there were tracks like Car Crash, which I could like really get into, and it was like the instrumental on that especially was just like really like it went hard, and I can appreciate that. So I gave it a 6 out of 10. I think that there's only like 1 or 2 songs on here that I would actually listen to because I enjoy them, but I can see why somebody would listen to this.
Yeah, I enjoyed this. I enjoyed the first half. I didn't enjoy the second half, and so I'm really split on this. Personally, I would give this somewhere around like a low 7 out of 10, because it's just that second half brought it down so bad for me. Weak ending. The end was so annoying, specifically the song. And again, same as Otis, coming into this with like no real punk experience, but coming into this with a lot of experimental music experience. There was just only a couple moments where I was like, this is super awesome, and a lot of moments where I was like, this is super okay. So I'm feeling low 7 out of 10.
Okay. I came in here ready to give this a 4, and just talking about it has again degraded it in my brain. It's just I know it's just, listening to this album, every time I was trying to get into it, I've listened to it so many times because every time I listened to it, it's like it just triggered in my brain an artist or an album that has done that sound more justice. And I've been like, I listened to that third track and I immediately was just like, I should really like re-listen to Trompe Le Monde and like Bossa Nova and then like some like Black Francis like solo albums, or like the intro track, as great as it is, I immediately started going back to like, I went back and listened to Daughters, and like this Beachland Ballroom was the only one that gave me that sensation, like, oh, this is cool, I like this a lot, and this is great, this vibes. And even like listening to Progress, Progress made me want to like go back and listen to like more Lower Town, or like listen to some like bedroom pop that I've been listening to over the summer. And like there's nothing of this album of its own merit draws me into it necessarily. And so as a result, like as good as some of those tracks are, it's like a 3 out of 10 for me, and
only
it's a
1 point better than James Arthur.
It's 1 point better than James Arthur. This is correct.
So
yeah, because like James Arthur, like, it was infuriating, but like this is equally infuriating. But I respect the artist more, so that's why it gets the extra point. But it's like equally inconsistent, and like I don't know. Because it's frustrating because I know what they were trying to do. I can sense everything they were trying to accomplish, but they did not commit to it in a way that felt genuine or felt like they were putting 110% in this record. Again, it's like they listened to a bunch of influences, said, well, let's make that, and then based the track listing off of that, and then undercut it with some of their own just punk stuff. And like, I'm sorry, New Sensation is such a cringe song. Like, it's so out of a... I was like, the new set, like it sounds like somebody doing an impression of like a Devo song, or it sounds like Rock Lobster. I don't know, like it sounds like a B-52s. I don't
Rock Lobster. That was the big thing. I was like, half of this sounds like just Rock
yes,
Lobster.
I don't.
As an album.
Right, I don't. So that's my problem. Is it's like it's fine if I can see influences in a record or influences in a song, but when the only appeal of the song is, hey, these influences, we've heard them too. I just can't get by.
I've listened to music.
I can't credit it. Yeah, that's the thing. Is like, so it's a 3 out of 10. So we do have our first like point of adversity. I will die on this hill. Please don't at me. I would still see these guys live. I'm kind of interested to see what their other albums sound like and what their future stuff is. But this was very much a miss for me personally.
Can I do a quick interlude about the Baby No Money concert?
So we're going to continue. We're going to roll right over that. We can save that for next week when you're not here. But
no, God.
All right. Anywho, we're going to move into now at this time curations and curiosities. So these are albums that we have recommended, and so they'll be led by the appropriate person who recommended them. So these are the things we want to listen to, and I'm going to ask that if you recommend an album, you hold your thoughts on the album and you just guide us through the discussion before chiming in, and we'll review them here. So all right, let's kick it off with Brockhampton, which is Roadrunner, New Light, New Machine, and I believe Veda, you recommended this. So
I did.
Tell us about this album.
I want to give a little background on Brockhampton. Brockhampton is I'm putting it in heavy quotes, boy band. They were made from a post by member Kevin Abstract on a Kanye West forum board asking if anybody wanted to do music together. And a bunch of people responded. Anybody who responded gotta be on the group. There's 13 members officially. I think that it just keeps fluctuating from in and out. And like the main vocalists here are members Kevin Abstract, Joba, Matt Champion, Don McLennan, Merlin Wood, Bareface, and Jabari Manwari. Whole idea was to really like put a little spoof on the idea of classic boy bands full of like, okay, like here's your pretty white pop star with a pretty voice and a pretty personality. Because it was described as being this group of full of like, you got gay, black, white, do-it-yourself, would-be pop stars, and a lot of people call them like the ugliest boy band around. Roadrunner itself was their 2021 release. 6th student full-length LP. Their mixtape doesn't count. It came out early this year after this like 2-year silence from the group. Until this random teaser was dropped in March of this year called Meet the Roadrunners, and then 2 singles were dropped shortly after, and the album debuted in April. It was their first project to really have like outside features, which includes a lot of big names like Danny Brown, JPEG Mafia, Charlie Wilson, ASAP Rocky, and ASAP Ferg, like all these people. personally, it's my favorite Brockhampton project. I thought that it was this great mix of old school, but then this really good mix of like that and new school experimentation. I thought that its big highs were really high. I thought that they were really fun. I thought that they're like not really lows, but like just the sad songs. Like there was some really intense heartstrings with a lot of the songs, and the only one I really want to like highlight here before I let you guys go for it is The Light, which has two members, Joba and Kevin Abstract, talking about whatever experiences they want. So Kevin Abstract talking about his experience being a gay black man and how his mom doesn't accept him. So like, what was it? It was I still struggle telling my mom who I'm in love with. Joba, this album, a lot of people consider it's just his like vent, because his dad had killed himself last September, and so this like first verse of this really like scattered, intense, heavy beat that I just am in love with like this first opener with, when I look at myself, I see a broken man, remnants of my pops, put the Glock to his head. Nothing ever go as planned, couldn't make amends, forcibly pretend I don't give a damn. It's just really intense, especially when you look at this with lyrics, especially watching it live. And then like The Light Part 2, like it's just the same thing, just really slow as an album finisher of the light is worth the wait, I promise, wait, why did you do it? Like it's intense. But it's really good, and I thought that they got really emotional with it. I thought every song sounded really nice. I love this album personally.
Yeah, The Light Part 1, or The Light and The Light Part 2 were just like so hard hitting. I was listening to them and just kind of the process of realizing what they were talking about. They're just, I think those two tracks are, as well for me, definitely standouts on this album. They're just like so amazing and like, wow, it's a lot. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this. Again, like it's another genre of music that I'm not incredibly familiar with, but I really appreciated it. I thought the production on this one was pretty awesome. And just like, I remember really enjoying, the kind of stories that the songs told. And I wish I had more time to kind of dig into the little references, which there were lots of, which is cool.
Yeah, I am a sad music connoisseur, so The Light Part 1 and 2, I was a fan of those, and I liked. I mean, I didn't really. There wasn't a song that I necessarily disliked on this album, but also like, I'm not really into this genre as much, so I don't think that I definitely don't enjoy it as much as other people do. I can't remember what I was going to say. I liked the shout out to Marvin Gaye on the second song, Chain On.
Yeah.
I liked that one. I'm a fan of what's going on. That's a good album. And yeah, I think it was a pretty solid album, but I don't think it's my strong suit.
Yeah, this is a record where I feel I'm not super familiar with Brockhampton's previous stuff, other than knowing that they have cited Radiohead as an artist that they like. So that puts them in a good moral standing in my book. But I actually quite like. I think one of the biggest strengths of this album for me was the flow from song to song. Not that they had the same like vibe to each song, but like there was a cohesion in the sound and the aesthetic of the album. I think opening up on Buzzcut was great. Chain On was pretty okay. I think the album for me picked up starting at Bankroll on track 4. Bankroll goes hard, and I really love the rhythm of Bankroll, and it's like it it's a great song. And of course, you follow it up with the Light and the Light. I'll echo this: the Light and Light Part 2, as well as Dear Lord, the penultimate track. I think really as like a trilogy, kind of like do this great job of like, I think Betty, you mentioned like the venting of the artists, and like this desperate plea in Dear Lord, for example. I think really builds on that as well. And so, I mean, overall, like I think the songwriting on this is probably the strongest of the week in terms of this, how to like structure your lyrics and structure a song and have a progression. And there's really only a couple like flat areas. And shout out to Baird, who has a feature on here with Old News.
Yeah, I can't believe they got Miss Baird on this album.
Mix Baird, if you're listening to this, kudos again. I text you about this already, but I just wanted to let you know that this must be old news at this point, but you do have a feature on the track Old News.
I think that was my favorite feature on the album.
Yeah. I think actually my favorite feature might have been,
Danny Brown?
No, I think my favorite feature... my favorite feature is probably still the A$AP Ferg and A$AP Rocky. Mm-hmm. Like, I think those were, but also Bankrolled. I think my favorite track in terms of this, like a go hard. Like, I really liked Bankroll. I think production wise, like this album was on point. I think again, it's a beautiful merger of really strong production value with a clear sound of what Brockhampton as a group were going for. With the emotionality of the lyrics, and I think all that combines to make a really, really solid and at times like really powerful record. I really enjoyed this. So
yeah, there was a couple moments on this that I really wanted to talk about.
Sure.
One was Danny Brown's verse on Buzzcut. I love Buzzcut. It was the first single to be released, and I think it's the song with the second most listens. Mm-hmm. But like when Danny's the kind of guy to like talk about how people aren't alpha and how they're incels and how they're normies and how he's gonna dox them, like, and make it sound good. I don't think a lot of people can talk about that and make like a good song. There was only one song in this album that really like. It was a song I didn't enjoy as much as the rest because it felt a little off. Or less off, but just not my favorite. And that was probably Count on Me. And that's the most popular one. I think that's the one with all the, like, it had a lot of big names.
It has the most views on Genius. So,
yeah. A$AP Rocky's on it. There's not any, like, named features, but, like, Ryan Betty and Shawn Mendes is on this as well.
Oh, he had me in stitches.
Yeah. It's the only song where I'm like, I'm not going to skip it, but I'm not going to like enjoy it.
Right.
But man, oh man, the music video for Count on Me, it was released and it involves Lil Nas X and Dominic Fike, and they're driving a Jeep Cherokee through the woods, and then they go into the forest and they start making out in the forest, and then as they're making out, they start morphing into one being, and then they're like falling into a lake, and then it just goes silent as they slowly sink to the bottom of the lake. And they didn't even finish the song. I don't even think they got like halfway through the song. I don't know what that was, but it was just so fun. One nobody talked about, Windows, is the longest one on the album. And it's the one where everybody just gotta like have a moment to do their thing, and it's a very classic old school hard hip hop with So Gone So Flexy. I really like that one. I thought that it was really interesting seeing. I think it was a 6-minute track, and you would think like, oh, that's 6 minutes. This is gonna get boring at some point. But it was pretty good with how, like, I think it was a little after the halfway point. They kind of like switched it up to get some more echoey, synthy, like out there vibes. I really like this album. You think you want to give scores? If there's any last things?
I want to say one more thing. I think that having so many people in a group, it kind of like threw me off a bit, because it's like every verse is someone else saying something different.
It's like Wu-Tang Clan.
It's kind of it's hard to keep track of it. And so that, I mean, I'm sure that I would get used to it, like if I kept listening to them, but upon first listen and second listen, it was kind of confusing.
Yeah, let's. I guess we'll go around and give final scores. Yeah, I'll start. Like I said, I think this album largely succeeds in where it goes. For me, I think the Lights, Dear Lord, and the Light Part 2 being as impactful as they are, deflate some of the rest of the album a little bit. I can't even remember. I can't even remember Count on Me, but I'm looking at it now. I'm like, oh yeah, that has the most views on Genius. So I'm like, but yeah, like for sure though, I think that those 3 songs themselves are fantastic tracks. But for me, they do kind of bring down some of the rest of the album, not all of it necessarily. It's closer to an 8, but it's like a high 7 for me, probably, in terms of what it accomplishes. And like I said, this is my first like Brockhampton record I've ever listened to, so maybe with repeats, I suspect this will improve in that standing. But just like listening to 3 or 4 times, that's kind of what stands out to me is like, yeah, this is really good. Like it's nearing great, but almost gets there.
Yeah, this album was so good, and it was a very fun experience to listen to, and Veda has been like telling me to listen to Brockhampton for so long, and it was just
so many other artists
and so many other artists that I need to listen to, but this album was it was so good. And like that one song, Dear Lord, it was such a interesting switch up, because I was really not expecting I wasn't expecting the album to go there, but it did. And yeah, I think all of the songs on this album are really strong, and just the production as well is really good. So I would say definitely between an 8 and a 9, and like I am gonna listen to this album more. I'm gonna check out this artist, and like if you're listening to this, definitely check out The Light and The Light Part 2.
Yeah.
And like those songs are so amazing. So yeah.
I give this one a 7 out of 10. I don't know. As with like all the other albums we've reviewed today, it's not really something that I found myself getting into a whole lot, but I can definitely see why people listen to this, and I really appreciate there are some really good lyrics on here, and The Light, both parts, those really hit hard, and having Dear Lord right in there, just like that was a shock in a good way. Because like they have some good singers in there, and I was impressed by like there are some really good harmonies in that song. So I really liked a lot of the instrumentals. It was just kind of hard for me to get to like really get into it, I guess. But I'm sure if I like listened to it more and like got more accustomed to it, I could like it more.
Yeah.
Me personally, I really love this album, and I think that it's a great album. I think looking at it, I think that one of the best parts about it is the re-listens, because then you get a lot of stuff you don't notice. And I think when you start to listen to a lot of the, I guess, less memorable tracks, stuff like Old News, What's the Occasion, When I Ball, Don't Shoot Up the Party. Those are 4 tracks that weren't even talked about, but those are all phenomenal tracks with a lot of amazing stories, especially Don't Shoot Up the Party. Mm-hmm. Another pretty hard hitter. But like, as like, just when I first listened to this, I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. But as I've been listening to it, I'm in love with it. I love, like, it's just so well done. It's, as you keep listening to it, it's so enjoyable. I personally would give it a 9 out of 10. It's just a really good album in my eyes.
Cool. Okay. Well, thank you, Veda. So that was Roadrunner, New Light, New Machine from Brockhampton. And now we get to our final album of today. And that will be Montero by Lil Nas X. So Otis, you recommended this. Talk about it a bit.
Yeah. So this is Lil Nas. I don't know how to put the apostrophe S after the S. Lil Nas X's debut album. Of course, we all know Old Town Road. But yeah, so it came out this on September 17th of this year. And the first single was released, Montero, Call Me By Your Name, was released last spring. And I think there were 2 other singles released.
Industry Baby and Sun Goes Down.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, there were 2 other singles that were released before the album dropped. And yeah, it caught particularly the music video for Montero caught some media attention. It's wonderful. You should watch it. It's very entertaining. Anyways, I chose this album because when it came out, I listened to it at first as a little bit of a joke, but then I realized that it actually has a lot of strong points to it. And I just kind of definitely, there are some songs that I could, that I don't like as much, but there are definitely some songs on there that I like, that I really enjoy. And there's also some diversity to the album, in just what the vibes of the songs are, and just with that, but at the same time, it doesn't like, it's one album, and I think that's really one of its stronger points. So yeah, I also wanted to hear Casady's reaction because I kept wanting an English teacher reacts to the Montero "Call Me by Your Name" music video. So we're getting.
Well, unfortunately, we're talking about the album today, Otis. Now. All right.
What about the Industry Baby music video?
That one's really good too.
Yeah, well, I'm going to disappoint you because my favorite tracks are not the singles, actually.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess I'll just talk about like some more specific things that I liked on this.
Sure.
My favorite tracks on this are Lost at the Citadel. Let me flip to my notes so I can. But yeah, Lost in the Citadel, sorry, and as well as Sun Goes Down. I think those they're not as expected, but like, and if you just listened to the first like 4 tracks off the album, you would not see those coming. But I really, really appreciated Lost in the Citadel particularly. It's just such a pretty song. And it's like kind of sad, but it brings me like the warm sadness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, I will start us off here.
Sure.
I thought that the acoustic guitar throughout the album was really interesting. I kind of went into this expecting like, oh, Old Town Road. Okay, here we go. let's hear like 45 minutes of that.
Dave Cowboy, let's go.
And that is not at all what I got, which I was happy about. But the acoustic guitar that kept appearing as often a main piece of the song was really interesting and unexpected in a good way. I kind of tend to like the more intimate songs, and I think that the features on this album were the parts that I liked the least, honestly. And so, except for One of Me featuring Elton John, I thought that was really cool.
I was blown away when that came out. I'm like, because I didn't have the track list in front of me, so I'm just like listening. I'm like, why does this sound like Elton John playing piano? Because I'm like, it sounds a lot like his feature that's on that Queens of the Stone Age album from 2013. I'm like, oh, okay, it is Elton John. And I was like, wait, what? And so
I would have loved to hear him sing on that song,
Yeah.
but you can't have everything.
I'm so disappointed.
Yeah. But I thought that there were some really, really good parts in this, and I really liked some of the songs, which I was surprised by. This is the first time I've actually listened to this album, and so I was impressed.
Yeah.
I It was also my first time listening to pretty much anything by Lil Nas X, and I've been looking to it for an excuse to do it, and here was my excuse right here, right in front of me. I enjoyed it. There was a couple top moments that I really enjoyed. I really enjoy when he does his big, like, Industry Baby specifically, like, just those big horns, the big sound, like... And a lot of the features are not people that I specifically would enjoy it, like Jack Harlow or Megan Thee Stallion.
Yeah.
But like here, they were pretty good, and like I completely disagree with Bridger. The features are honestly like probably my favorite part, or just a couple of them. Jack Harlow's verse on Industry Baby is probably like one of my favorite moments, and it's just like it's interesting. He just works really well in the beat, and I really like the "I didn't peak in high school, I'm still out here getting cuter." Like that's such a good lyric. The Art of Realization and Scoop, I kind of considered them like the same song because it was an interlude that led into a song,
yeah,
and it led into it so nicely. And this was another one with a feature, Doja Cat, who I thought she was pretty fun on the beat. I thought that it was pretty nice. I really liked the like first couple of seconds of it, and where it was like really, it was just really interesting to me, with this really nice quiet bass. It was pretty nice. It was then Dollar Sign Slime featuring Megan Thee Stallion.
That's awesome.
I went into this and I was like, oh my God, I don't want to listen to a Megan Thee Stallion song. I enjoyed this song and I'm so mad at myself. From Lost in the Citadel, which I also really enjoyed that one. And that had a really good transition into this. And I am just a sucker for transitions, and so it just really upped my experience. I thought the horns were really nice. I thought that the lyrics were just funny and goofy, which I really appreciated in Industry Baby and Montero. And truthfully, I enjoyed Megan's verse. I thought it was funny. There was some stuff said, so I'll just list off the one that wasn't explicit. It was the, "Are you a stan or the real Slim Shady?" I thought that one was funny. And
it's a reference to Eminem for our listeners.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys know who that is. He came up with the term stan.
Yeah, you probably get eaten like a candy named after him. But.
Yeah. The only moments that were a little weak for me was probably like the ending and like the third quarter of it. Like Void was iffy. Don't Want It was iffy. Tales of Dominica or I can't
Dominica.
Dominica. Okay. Yeah. I enjoyed that one actually a bit more than I thought I would. Overall, my only issue with it is that a lot of it became very samey, and a lot of it had a lot of topics that were just discussed in every pop song ever.
Yeah.
And obviously they had some very different scenarios, i.e. Montero. But like that was just the only issue is as I listened to the lyrics, I was like, okay, but I've heard this so many times before. It just... that was the only thing that really brought it down for me, because other than that, like, it was pretty all right.
Yeah, this is it's actually kind of remarkable for a first time effort. And you think of like Old Town Road, and like that was what, 2018, maybe 3 years at least,
something like that.
Yeah, something like maybe 19. Point is though, Lil Nas X brings this incredible like talent for like pop songwriting to what is like to this record, to make it is really a pop record, which is it's a pretty good pop record actually, especially for a first time outing. I think Montero is, I mean, like there's a reason it's been around the charts as long as it has, and it's been out over TikTok and YouTube Shorts, and part of that is like it has this really wide appeal to it. I love, would you call that like flamenco style guitar? I get like this pseudo flamenco, yeah.
And I watched the video on the production, and there's like there's a banjo in there.
Yeah,
it's so weird.
But it has like these elements to it that like elevate it from just a pop single to make it like a certified banger. And yes, I'll say the music video is also, I actually quite like the music video a lot. For the same reasons that I really like the album cover as well. Like it's like there's like this inventiveness to it, which matches the tone of the song, because the song is, I'm not going to say it invented this style of like pop music, but like it is like everything that you expect out of popular music distilled into a 3.5 minute banger. Beyond that, I think Dead Right Now is a great lead-in from Montero. Lyrically, I think that's really strong. I really like Industry Baby as much as I really can't stand Jack Harlow as like an individual. I think Industry Baby is a dope song. Obviously not as it's done well, not nearly as well as Montero. Montero is like insane. And it's also insane to me that like basically back-to-back singles from Lil Nas X have been like taken the world by storm, which again I think is the mark of a good songwriter, that you can like make a song that is as much of an earworm as it is and connects with people.
I feel bad for saying like I enjoyed Megan and Jack.
I don't. I think like Megan Thee Stallion's feature on Dollar Sign Slime I think is really good. Honestly, one of my favorite songs on this record is Scoop. I just love the notion that he throws around the lyrics of this, like he's like, yo, I'm doing Pilates, check it out, like this idea of like kind of like flaunting and like self-confidence and body positivity is really strong in it. And also like Doja Cat's feature on that's actually kind of funny. Like it's entertaining and it's good. It's a great beat. I am a sucker for this meme. I love that. It's so good. Yeah, so it's just like scoop,
the chorus.
It's so good.
I think that was one of the biggest things is whenever there was a feature, they were goofy and fun and like they were out of their comfort zone, and it was enjoyable to watch them on these.
And if you're talking about a pop record, I mean, that's what a pop record should be. Is it should be fun. It doesn't have to be self-serious. Like, there's been some really good pop music this year.
And then there's been James Arthur, but
but even then, like, but there's been stuff like, you know, I really appreciate kind of the direction that Lana Del Rey and like Halsey have been taking pop, and to a lesser degree Florence and the Machine. But no, this idea of like taking it in a direction of like darker and exploring these more serious topics, and even like you see elements of that kind of on the Brockhampton record too. But in this case, this is just a fun like this feels like a summer album released in September, which we gave James Arthur a bunch of crap for it, but like it's a fun album. It's fun, and it has some heartfelt moments on it too. Like there are. Like One of Me is a great song, and like Elton John featuring it is awesome. I really like Lost in the Citadel. Sun Goes Down I think is a great single as well. And from there, like I guess my least favorite was probably the Miley Cyrus feature, and that might just be personal preference. But
her voice did not work on that. In my eyes.
Yes,
I thought that it was kind of cool in that song how like in the last chorus, like you could hear her, like they were both singing on that one line. I can't remember exactly what it was that they were saying, but like the first one be like, oh wait, here it is.
The both parts where
and
it's like
everything I've done is where they're both singing, and it was like you could hear like Miley Cyrus would get panned out like kind of far on one of the sections and then like come back in for another one of the sections. I thought that was kind of cool. I didn't really necessarily enjoy the feature as much either, but
that discordant like interplay between the two, like between two artists that worked pretty well. But other than that, like it's not my favorite by any means. But overall I think this is like a mostly really successful pop record. Has me excited for a follow-up. For me, historically, sophomore albums have make or break artists, and so I want to know what direction he kind of goes in for this next one. But I was like really pleasantly, because I've been meaning to listen to this for a while too, and I was looking for an excuse. And then when this came up, I'm like, cool, I'll finally like check this out now, and I'm kind of glad I did because it's really cool. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
So.
No, it was a good surprise. I've gone through phases of like and dislike for Old Town Road because, you know, it was funny and then it was like repetitive and then it was funny again. But this album really brought Lil Nas's talent to like a next level and really showcased it in a different way. And like I just want to highlight this one lyric in Sun Goes Down. I know that you want to cry, but but it's so much more to life than dying over your past mistakes and people who throw dirt on your name. I just really love that lyric, and just the fun parts of this album were really fun. And then there were some other songs that were just like kind of I don't know how to describe it better than just like a warm sadness.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, we can just go around with our like final thoughts and ratings. So if Bridger, you want to start?
Yeah. So I gave this one a 7.5 out of 10. I really enjoyed like a significant amount of it, which was surprising to me. There were some things that I could leave behind, but overall I think it was a really solid album, and it was really good. I really enjoyed at the end of Tales of Dominica, there's like a cool violin part, which as a violin player myself, I felt seen, and I thought that was really interesting.
Me personally, I think that I'd give this maybe a high 6 out of 10. There was a lot of moments on it that I really enjoyed, a lot of moments where I could just like enjoy myself and zone out, but it just felt like that generic, like I feel like at this he was really going for that generic vibe and trying to make fun of it, but in making fun of it he kind of fell into it, and so it was a little disappointing when on some tracks it was just generic, everything I've heard before done again. And it kind of brought it down for me to the point where it's not an album I would listen to as an album, but more something I'd look for like a couple good singles in. So yeah, I was going to say maybe a strong 6 out of 10.
Yeah, for me, I totally get what you're saying, Beta, about the kind of some of the genericness of it. I just see it as like kind of the opposite of, I'll reference Crawler here from Idols. It's made up for by the fact that there is an energy to it. There's a passion. There's a sense of fun to this. And so when you're talking about like, some of it can kind of get a little generic and a little stale. It's done with such exuberance and like just fun and like just throwing your, clearly Lil Nas X is throwing his all into these tracks. And so it elevates the material for me to be something a bit more. So it's a 7 for me. It's pretty firmly in the middle. I have a really high bar for like 8s. I'm just going to be like quite frank here. You're going to hear a lot of like 7s and below.
Yeah.
Because for me to say it's a great album, there are bars it needs to clear. And in this case, like some more inspired stuff here and there, I think would fit that. I didn't quite like the few skits that are like, or at least the one skit that stands out in my mind, like the Art of Realization, I think it's a weird place for that to come in. Like I might have would have liked it towards the end or towards the back third of the record. That being said, the rest of this album is really solid and again elevated by the enthusiasm, and it has me excited for the next record. And like I think for a pop record to largely be successful, it's hey, can you sell me on what you're putting out and get me wanting to listen to more of it? And it does. So 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I really enjoy a lot of this album, but I think it does a little bit fade off towards the end. And then just like there's definitely an energy to it, and there's a lot of passion put into it, which I think you can definitely tell, and I think I definitely appreciate it. I didn't appreciate the Jack Harlow feature as much, but I liked the other features. They were fun. It was fun to see Elton John on this, and it was fun, I mean, also to just follow this album through its creation. My interest was piqued with Montero, and then just like to see some fun pictures with Lil Nas and Elton John was fun.
I still can't believe Elton John featured on this record.
On Gorillaz Song Machine, it makes sense, but like Lil Nas X's first album?
Yeah, I was like, is this a typo? Is this like a different Elton John?
It's like Elton John with a zero.
I was amazed that he didn't start
I'm
singing.
El Zero and John. Yeah.
It's just a computer.
But for me this was like a 7 or 8 out of 10. It was really good, and it was like refreshing. There were some really fun lyrics, and then I mean, I also really appreciated the kind of like diversity and where the album went. Because it definitely kind of goes to a little bit of a more mellow spot towards the end, and especially in that like those middle end songs, and then so it's good. It's a pretty awesome album.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right on. All right, everyone. Well, that brings us to the assignment. So we're going to assign some albums for next week, and we have a couple announcements there. But let's start with the downbeats. Normally we'll choose this list at random, but there are instances where a pretty major release is coming up that we do want to check out. And so for next week, our one new album that we're going to check out is Adele's 30. And so that comes out this Friday, the 19th. So 30, Adele. For some, like 5 years, I want to say, after taking a hiatus after 25. And so I'm...
Oh, that's why it's called 30. Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to go kind of move along there. So that'll be our only new release because, Veda, you will not be joining us next week.
Sadly enough, I have therapy.
Okay, well, don't worry. James Arthur can't hurt you anymore.
I gotta tell him all about it.
Anyways, but yeah, so Veda will not be joining us, and instead we will have a special musical guest.
It's me, Elizabeth Brixton.
Yeah, Elizabeth Brixton of the FALA Upcast will be here to sit in your place. And if I'm not mistaken, Elizabeth does have a recommendation. So because we have a guest here, we thought it'd be only fair that the guest we get to suggest an album for us to listen to. So, Bridger, what is the album that Elizabeth would like us to check out?
All right. Me, Elizabeth Brixton, I am suggesting we listen to Elliot Smith by Elliot Smith.
Okay, I would assume that is the self-titled debut of Elliot Smith.
It is, I believe, his second album.
Oh, okay. So we're going for
that?
I mean, Pearl Jam, like their 7th or 8th album,
Why would
was
you do
called
that?
Pearl Jam, but no fans call it that. They just call it Avocado.
What?
It has an avocado on the front of it. It's kind of funny.
It's like naming the James Arthur album "Grown Man Talks to Little Boy," and like that'd probably still be a shorter name than what was there.
Yeah. I want to make the Beatles. We have the Beatles at home. Beatles at home. All right. So yeah, Elliot Smith is second album. So sophomore album, Elliot Smith from 1995. And then so that will be our guest listen. And for this week, Bridger and I will be suggesting an album to check out from our list. So, Bridger, if you would like to start, or you'd like me to start, it's up to you.
I can go first.
Sure thing.
I'm going to be suggesting the album Perennial by Vern Matz.
Perennial.
Yes.
Okay. Can you spell both of that?
Just like perennial.
Okay, Perennial is spelled P-E-R-E-N-N-I-A-L.
I butchered that.
Okay.
And by Vern Matz, V-E-R-N space M-A-T-Z.
Okay.
These are 2 R's. God.
Okay, okay, found it. It exists. It wasn't coming up in my Bing autocomplete. I get paid every month to use Bing. But it wasn't coming up in that. So, okay, Perennial, Vern Matz. We'll put these up on the thumbnail for this video as well. So you can follow along with this. I have been inspired by a couple events. Number one was the soul-crushing depression that was listening to James Arthur back to back.
Now we have to listen to Pearl Jam, guys.
Believe it or not, I'm not recommending a Pearl Jam record.
I hope it's the new Coldplay one.
I am recommending a grunge record, though. So this is going to be a little weird. So we said at the beginning of this that we would try to avoid live albums unless we felt they were like kind of like pivotal to an artist's discography. And so in the spirit of Nevermind by Nirvana's had its 30-year anniversary, I feel like everybody has listened to Nevermind or heard of Nevermind. You've probably heard of tracks off In Utero. But the one I want to explore is Live at Reading. So Live at Reading, that's R-E-A-D-I-N-G, is a 1992, if I'm not mistaken.
By Nirvana?
Nirvana, yeah. Live at Reading has like
I'm not even talking about any of this. Why do I care?
It's all good. So Live at Reading by Nirvana is the one I'm going to recommend for next week. So, all right. Thank you for joining us, everyone. We are going to, at this time, gracefully bow out at the hour and 30-minute mark. So, goodbye, everyone.
I love music so much.
Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for paying attention. See you next week.
This is so cool.
Bye, guys.